You're listening to the Sisters in Loss podcast, a faith-based grief and loss podcast for Black women, where you will hear stories of miscarriage, infant loss, stillbirth, and infertility to learn there is a testimony in tragedy. You will learn how to heal, gain clarity, find hope and peace, and turn your pain into your purpose after loss. I'm your host, Erica M. McAfee.
Welcome to episode 101 of the Sisters in Loss podcast. 90% of African American women have uterine fibroids. And today's guest shares her miscarriage story and rainbow baby pregnancy with fibroids. Shawn Owens found out she was expecting as she was preparing for an outpatient procedure. She and her husband were shocked by the news due to her diagnosis with uterine fibroids and her being 38 years old. Shawn wanted to wait to share the news with her family around Father's Day, but she ended up in the emergency room a week before Father's Day with severe pain and bleeding. The doctors could not detect a heartbeat and sent her home with medication for pain to miscarry with no direction. In today's episode, Shawn takes us back to that day and then shares when she was ready to try again to conceive her rainbow baby, which pregnancy came with many challenges like bleeding, being placed on bed rest, and not being able to walk due to the size of her 5 uterine fibroids. This episode is for you to listen to if you have uterine fibroids and if you are still waiting for your rainbow baby pregnancy. Here is Shawn Owens.
Well, thank you so much, Shawn, for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Erica.
So I'd like to begin with you sharing a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Well, I am, first of all, a Christian. I am a wife, and I am a mother to Baby Glow. And I am a stay-home mother at the present time. My passion is early childhood education, as well as my Christian walk and passion is helping women understand sound doctrine. I encourage women to live in community and sisterhood, as well as in community, as well as in discipleship.
Awesome. So take us back on your journey to motherhood and share with us your lost story.
Okay. Well, I have been trying to have a baby, I think, if I'm correct, about 15 years. I got married at 21. And during that time, my husband and I weren't trying to have children. We were doing everything to not have kids. So I were taking birth control. I was getting certain things. We was using just different methods to make sure that we didn't have a child. So when we were trying to have a baby, I ended up going to the doctors one day and just a regular checkup. And they were like, we couldn't do the procedure they was getting ready to do because I was already pregnant. And I was like, oh my goodness, this was a shocker to both me and my husband because we weren't expecting it. But during that time, I knew that I had about 3 fibroids. But my doctor encouraged me at the time to not worry about them because I wanted to remove them. But they were encouraging me not to move them because of my age. So we allowed them to stay there. And then I started some bleeding and I was very nervous about it because it was red, dark red. So I called my doctor and they informed us to go, to get checked out. And when I got checked out, they had then informed me that I was losing my daughter or losing my baby and to go home and just relax. So, of course, my husband and I were both traumatized. So when the baby actually passed through, we were, again, just really traumatized by the event. I wasn't quite sure what to expect. But when we went back to the doctor for another checkup after the miscarriage, they informed me that it was due to the fibroids that I had and that they should have removed them. And actually, I ended up developing more fibroids while I was pregnant. So I started off with 3. And then somehow, I don't know what happened, but I ended up developing a total of 5 altogether. Now, it was during that time that, again, that they said that I should have gotten them removed because I believe it was 1999, I had a fibroid cyst removed. So, which again, just the fibroids, cysts, all of those type of things is pretty much what I had been struggling with. So when they informed me that I should have gotten them removed, we started to look into the process of doing that. But then they considered that because of my age, I was high risk, and the time frame that me and my husband now wanted to have a child, they felt as if they were to go in there to remove the fibroids, then again, that the procedure would take a little bit longer. So again, my husband and I was like, okay, we'll get them removed. So the crazy thing happened was we ended up getting pregnant again before the fibroids were removed. And we were scared because we was fearful because of the sense of not wanting to have another miscarriage, because we knew that the fibroids was the reason why we had the first miscarriage. And yeah, so we both were very fearful. We prayed a lot and was trusting the Lord with that baby. And the pain that I experienced carrying my daughter due to the fibroids were, again, something that I was not prepared for. I did not know that I was going to end up being on bed rest by the time I was 5 months pregnant. I was very uncomfortable. There was times where literally I couldn't move because the heaviness of the fibroids. And it was very devastating for both my husband and I to just, the expectations of carrying a child, that we've been waiting for. And then to know that I was going to be bedridden, wasn't able to move a lot at all. Literally going to the doctors and laying back on the couch was pretty much all that I can do during that time. It was very painful. I think I bled through most of my pregnancy, which also was very scary because every time I saw the blood, it would make me think again that I was losing my child. But by God's grace, this child did come and was born full term, but it was definitely a very scary pregnancy as well.
Absolutely. So tell us about your birth. Like, how did your birthing process work? How did that go? Did you have your daughter early? Tell us about that.
Yeah, definitely. I just thank the Lord that he pretty much was leading us through, and it was definitely a lot of prayer, as I mentioned, but we do totally believe that it was the Lord leading and guiding us, because we were able to go to a high risk doctor with the pregnancy. And I did deliver her 2.5 weeks early. However, I need to back the story up. I almost had her about 3 times. So due to I was hospitalized, maybe out of the 3 times, the first time I was hospitalized 2 nights. The second time I was hospitalized 4 nights. The third time I was hospitalized 3 nights. And they were trying to stop her from coming early. And and that, like I said, it was definitely a traumatizing pregnancy because we had to keep going back in, and they were, again, just trying their best to keep her in, and so as long as possible. So when it actually came down to the day that she was delivered, during that time, I delivered her 2 weeks early, and praise God, I didn't have to have a C-section. I was able to have her vaginally. And it was all the doctors, because there was a group of doctors that was caring for me and my family during that time. And they were all very, very impressed. And they thought that due to just the severity of the pregnancy and how things were happening, that they thought that the pregnancy was going to be, the birth was going to be much different than what it was. And we give all that credit to the Lord that it wasn't, because they definitely had informed me that there was a possibility that I could bleed very heavy due to the fibroids, which that's normal for women with fibroids. Normally when you give birth right afterwards, you tend to bleed out, which they was preparing me for a blood transfusion, which I did not have to get, but I was definitely prepared for mentally. But the birth itself was not bad at all. Praise God.
Awesome.
Today's episode is sponsored by the Consistency While Living in Limbo free webinar. Success doesn't come from what you do occasionally. It comes from what you do consistently. Grief, trauma, and loss can have a dramatic effect on lifestyle habits, and it can be challenging to maintain adequate nutrition, get regular exercise and physical activity, as well as sticking to a proper sleep schedule. This webinar is for you if you are not consistently getting the results you want to achieve success and go to the next level in your goals, relationships, marriage, partnerships, businesses, and career. This webinar is for you if you have been feeling stuck in your healing journey and want to move forward with consistent action. In this webinar, we will go through what is living in limbo, how grief, trauma, and loss shows up in our everyday lives through grief triggers, how do we manage them, and what tools can we use every day to remain consistent and show up even when we feel like giving up. Sign up today at bit.ly/living in limbo. Once again, that is bit.ly/LIVINGINLIMBO. Can't wait to see you all on this webinar on June the 25th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
So take us back on how you really breathed through the miscarriages while you were pregnant, because you ended up getting pregnant like right after. How did you go through that healing process while you were carrying life?
Wow. It was difficult, right? Because I was grieving, but also at the same time scared. So it was like a mixture of emotions as well as happy. Like, okay, Lord, you've given us this baby again. So again, I believe that the Lord was trying to teach us to trust Him in that, because it definitely wasn't our plan because we was preparing ourselves to actually get the fibroids removed. But one of the ways that I healed was talking to a lot of the sisters in the church that also had miscarriages. They would come over and sit with me, which was very encouraging. And I was able to just ask them, questions such as like, a lot of fearful questions was pretty much what I had a lot on my mind as far as like, if I've had one, will it most likely lead into another one? And just those type of things. And I had a lot of sisters that was very encouraging. One sister in particular, she had about 5 miscarriages, but she also now had 5 children. And her spirit was very calming, and she was very helpful for me during that time, as well as reading on God's goodness and realizing that He knows what's best and that He doesn't make mistakes, like constantly reminding myself of that. And then following your page.
Awesome. Thank you for saying that. Let's talk about now that you are a mom, you are experiencing this new role as a mother. Let's talk about what you do for self-care. What do you do for self-care as a new mom?
As a new mom, wow, self-care. Well, I have to give a big shout out to my husband. He's very helpful. Like, he can tell when I'm having a rough week, not even a rough day, but a rough week. And he'll be like, you want to call your girls? You want to have like a girls' weekend? And so every now and then I will pick up the phone and text a group of moms and say, hey, let's go grab wine at the winery, or let's go and do a spa day. And I think that connecting with other moms has helped me tremendously, because they understand some of the things I'm going through, and they're able to give like good, just sound advice, which is very helpful for a new mom. And that has been really, really helpful for me.
Awesome. So let's talk about just any resources or tools that you use to really help you as you were grieving and healing. And then really talk to us about just kind of how your relationship was during this process as well, because we didn't really talk about how your husband played a role in helping you as you were both going through grief and loss and then being pregnant at the same time.
Okay. To be honest, the only resource that I used, other than, again, just finding your page through a church sister whose name is Christy, I believe she encouraged me to start following you, in which I did, and the Bible. That was pretty much just the only resources that I had. And it was very, very encouraging. And I do need to give one more quick nugget. It was also, Chrissy was that sister that sometimes when I was grieving, a part of me wanted to also almost like have a pity party, like to beat myself up. Like I caused this miscarriage. Like there was something that I did, right? And one day she came over with a gold footprint and it was a charm. And she just started to tell me that this footprint is a constant reminder of my baby that I did have, and it's not something that I should forget about. And that's nothing that I did to harm my baby. And that was very, very encouraging for me. So I thank Chrissy for that. I wear my charm, and I realized that miscarriage and that baby will always be a part of my life. I don't want to move on and forget, that baby was inside of my body, and the Lord had gave that baby to me for a short period of time, but it was a baby, So that was a sweet reminder that Chrissy did for me, and I really, really appreciate that. And then my husband, wow. While I was grieving, he was also grieving. And there was a couple of brothers in the church that also had wives that had miscarriages, and he was clinging to them, and they were encouraging him. And then he would come home and he was just being even more understanding than what he already was. And he was just really supportive. Days that I just wanted to just lay around and not do anything was the days that he served me well. And he would, again, just encourage me to hang out or just relax. I think our grieving was just a state of just still shock, but at the same time, just trusting the Lord.
Absolutely. So what encouraging word can you give the mom out there who has fibroids and has experienced the loss, and they are in that process of trying again?
Well, to the woman that has fibroids, I would definitely encourage you to get them removed. If you're definitely trying to have a baby, whether you have them or not, just definitely go get checked out. It will make a huge difference. Pregnancy as a whole is already very emotional, and one thing that you want to just with even like self-care and taking care of yourself is to make sure that your body is ready to care for this baby. And so I would just encourage you to, if you can, to get them removed and trust the Lord. He is definitely good. He definitely don't make mistakes, and that he knows your desire to have a child. And if it's his will, you would definitely be a mother soon. Keep trying.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Shawn, for sharing your story with the listeners. Where can we find you on social?
You can find me on Shawnie B, that's SHAWNIE, as well as you can find me on Woman Talk to God.
Awesome. Thank you again for sharing your story and sharing your life.
You are more than welcome, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I pray that this show was inspirational and a blessing to you. For show notes, visit ericamcafee.com/podcast. Please join us in our offline discussions in our private Facebook group by going to sistersinloss.com. If you're listening in Apple Podcasts, please rate and subscribe to us and leave us a 5-star review. I pray that you all have a blessed week. Keep the faith, and I'll talk to you next Wednesday.